gonna be like one of your shirts. How dare you defy Tyler Ransom?
I'm gonna write that down. I like that. I like that.
Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing, you know what? I'm doing okay in this. I'm doing okay. It's a crazy time we live in. How are you? Thank you for having me on here.
I'm doing okay as well. I like your setup. I feel like your setup and my setup are pretty similar. Like in mine, you might see like a Canada poster here in the background. I believe that's what do you call like an iHome here and a few New York posters, even though I'm like in Newfoundland, Canada. But I like how yours has like a guitar. I can see a guitar.
And the
I'm kind
car.
of
You have
curious. What poster is that over there on the? It looks like on the door or the wall.
the door. Oh, so it's I have an album called Prom Night that I released when I was in high school, 16. My
Okay.
friend Stanley did some of the art. So on the door here is one of the first
Oh,
like rough
nice.
drafts we had of the poster. So it's nice.
Yeah, that's something that like when you ever have someone over and just be like, here's my collection of things, and oh, what's that over there? Yeah, no, don't even look at that. That's nothing. uh,
Exactly. It's like, oh man, I forgot it was
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like a humble brag. It's like over here is all my collection of things, and oh, what's that? Let me close the door there. Oh, whoa, totally forgot that was even there. But hey, since it's there. Um, So I want to start off by asking you, what are some of your interests, or yeah, what are some of your interests that kind of got you into music? Like, who were some people that kind of inspired you along the way? Because, I mean, I'm a '90s kid. I grew up listening to like just say Backstreet Boys and Sync, and I know some people be like, "Oh no, 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 you didn't. Don't be lying." Like, why would I lie about that? Um, but like, you are kind of into like the jazz side of things. So I'm wondering like, who were some of your inspirations? Like when I think jazz, I assume Kenny G immediately, but who were some people that you would idolize or kind of inspire you to get into music?
So growing up, the first instrument I picked up was saxophone. So it was sort of a lot of saxophone players were who I was introduced to musically at first. I was listening to a lot of John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, people like that in that realm, just big saxophone players. I picked up on Miles Davis a lot growing up, and it's from Miles Davis that I sort of branched out to like the Funkadelics, and like my music taste just kept growing. But jazz was like the central part of my upbringing.
So like, I guess did anyone ever refer to you as like the sax guy, or like do you ever see those memes where it's just the guy like just going hard on the did someone ever tell you like I want to see you do that and you're like no come on I want to be taken seriously here?
Surprisingly, when I was in middle school, I actually had a big afro, and I had the saxophone, but people would be like, "Oh my God, it's Jimi Hendrix! Play the guitar behind your head." And I was like, "I play saxophone. I don't know what you're talking about."
They just like try to label you as it, and then like it would be funny if like years later when you're doing an interview it's just like they bullied me into the sax, man. They bullied me into the sax. um but no, I think I think that's interesting because like again you're what 19 years old.
I'm 19 years old.
Yeah, so like when you're mentioning these like acts, like, and I don't mean any offense to these or like to the acts you mentioned, but it's like I look and I'm like, what? Like who? Like, come on! It's like I know when I'm even mentioning like Backstreet Boys or like NSYNC, they're like to someone your age, you're probably gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember them. Like, why aren't they called like the Backstreet Men or something? And I'm like, okay, fair enough, but like. When you mention these acts, I'm like, geez, like that kind of seems a little bit past my time as well. So like who kind of got you into this music? I'm guessing like was it like your parents and then you were like listening to it when you were younger, or did you just hear it on the radio one day and say, you know what? This is something I've never heard of, but I like it.
Surprisingly, the internet is a crazy thing. Both my parents are not that musical, but the first day I picked up the saxophone, I went home and I just searched like saxophone solo, and then from there I just went down the YouTube loop that we all go down, and I was just picking up all these different sounds and musical artists. Next thing I know, I was watching like Wes Montgomery, he's a famous jazz guitarist, 1959 video recording, and I was like, why is everything in black and white?
Yeah. you just like you're like, okay, come on. But I mean, that's interesting. You mentioned like the YouTube loop because in some cases we all fall in that category. Like I know if I go on a YouTube search, it's so funny. Like I see jokes or memes on it, and sometimes you'll actually see YouTube videos on this as well, which is kind of counterproductive. But it's like I started off searching for like
One
wrestling
thing,
videos,
and then it
and
goes so
somehow I
completely.
wound up watching a Katy Perry. I'm like, how did that? Where did I go from watching Austin give a stunner to Katy Perry at a YouTube convention? And then it's like, then you try to track the video list. You're like, I don't know how I ended up here, but somehow I did. And now it's 3 hours later, and I feel like I learned nothing but something at the same time.
Exactly.
Um, so the other thing I kind of want to get into too here is, when we got the press release on you, it mentioned about when you were like 18 months old, I believe you had, was it kidney failure?
Oh, sorry, Brian. You sort of went out. I
Oh,
heard the
sorry, no.
last part, kidney failure, but then that
No,
was
oh
it.
no, no, that's fine, that's fine. So, like when we were getting like the press release on you, when we were doing a little bit of research ourselves, we read up that from 18 months, I believe
Hmm.
at 18 months, like you had, was it kidney failure or something involved with your kidneys? And like, I mean, from someone, full disclosure here, that like I deal with kidney stones. Now I know it's a little bit different, but it's still a battle. It's still something that you're not really like, hey, everybody, you're not like walking into a room being like, kidneys over here, like pay attention. So like tell me about that, because I mean, I guess when you get older you get a little bit more of an understanding of it, but like kind of how concerned were you first starting off when you learned about it, and how are you managing it now?
So, I've had a kidney illness called Nephrotic Syndrome since I was 18 months old. Basically, my kidneys filtering system, it goes in and out.
Oh,
So it shuts off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it results in a lot of protein spilling out of my urine. So basically, it keeps the bad stuff in my body and I pee out the good stuff. So I don't have to get dialysis, but sometimes if it gets too bad, I get something called a relapse. I gain 15 to 30 more pounds of excess liquid.
okay.
I have to take a lot of blood transfusions and just pee out all the way. It's a crazy time. Not the best, but
It sounds like something that it's like you don't want to get up on a stage and be like, hey guys, like just give me a second. They're like, oh, he's just gone to the bathroom, and then you come back and like tell the whole story. They're like, okay, like
basically,
great,
hey guys,
great.
kidney over here.
Yeah,
Hey guys,
yeah.
look at me.
But no, I think that's kind of interesting. So like, how do you manage, because how do you manage, I guess, day-to-day life going through something like that? Like, is it kind of contained now, or like, are you always on the kind of like, I guess, alert just to make sure things are in check? Like, is there any kind of warning signs that you can kind of tell someone, hey, things aren't going so well right now? Like,
Definitely. So I'm on a lot of medications right now. Some warning signs, you could sometimes when I wake up, my eyes are going to be super puffy, which means that the liquid is starting to build up in my body, which is a big sign. So, always waking up and checking the mirror is probably one of the most anxiety-ridden things of the day because I don't know how if my eyes are going to be puffy, if they're not going to be puffy. And and sort of piggybacking on the first question, just growing up was pretty difficult because, I'm growing up and I don't really understand what's happening. So through time, I'm very grateful I have such a good support system. My dad, my family, they sort of helped steer me clear. They uh, talked to the doctors. They made things clear for me, so I understood what was happening.
no, yeah, like, because I look at it from the standpoint of, so I kind of deal with seizures and Sturge-Weber syndrome. So I kind of like, in somewhat a relatable way, when you're younger, if these things happen, you're kind of like, okay, like what's going on here? Like no one's giving me like the Coles notes of my life. like
Exactly.
like someone like 5 years old. Here, Brian, here's what we know so far at five. You're like, ah, like I don't want to read this. I don't know how to read. But when you get older, you're kind of like, okay, I'm kind of interested in like knowing a little bit more about this so that I can kind of figure it out myself. So like, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from in that aspect. But like now, the thing that I kind of admire, or think it's kind of interesting about all this, is that like you don't let it wear you down. You don't let it kind of stop you. Like, again, you're
No,
doing
it's
music.
bringing
You're
me
like,
back.
19 years old. I mean, you know what I was doing at 19? I was sitting at home playing video games. What am I doing at 29? Let's not talk about it. No, I'm playing video games. Um, but it's interesting to me because sometimes when you get something like that, like a setback, you're like, okay, so I guess this is it. I'm not doing anything. I've got to try to find something to keep this moderate or in check. But you're basically like, screw that. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna continue on. So I guess like getting into the music side of things as well, like does that ever kind of affect your music ability, or like when you're doing a just say recording something that you're kind of like concentrating elsewhere?
It's crazy how music sort of works in my head. It's a big distraction. Actually, I have a distinct memory. One time I was actually relapsed. My body was going through it. I had like 30 pounds of excess fluid. At the time, this was in high school. I was in a band called Tyler Ransom and the Handsomes, and I was having blood transfusions all day. Sorry, bear with me. This is going to be a crazy story. I swear it'll pay off
No,
in
no,
the end,
go
Brian.
go for it.
But I was having blood transfusions all day, and I had a show that night. So I think it was like 14 hours of just straight sitting down and just getting pumped up with steroids. And by the time that was over, I was like skinny and I was not feeling it. It was like, Tyler, you have a show like in an hour. What are you doing? We gotta go. And I was like, oh no. So we go on stage, and Brian, I can't remember the night, but I looked at footage and it's probably the greatest performance I've ever done. I may have peaked. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like an interesting story. It's like, okay, so this is Tyler's peak. It's like, so how did he get there? A lot of steroids, man. A lot of steroids. It's like, okay, well, let's do that again. It's like, are you nuts? No, we can't do that. It's like he could be like the next artist that like, yeah, he's gonna put like write out music, but then like, he passes away at like 20 something. It's like, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, you're right. Let's not do that. Like,
But yeah, music. So music's helped. It's a big distraction. It transports me to another place, and I never really gets in the way because I think it's all about perspective as well. That's another thing I've gained throughout these years of growing up with this kidney illness. That it's all about how you perceive things and how you turn negatives into positives.
yeah, no, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I kind of want to get into this too, is when you're talking about kind of music as being an escape. Like, I know that you were mentioning you're a little bit more on the jazz side of things, but is there certain songs or certain, I guess, musicians? Like, I know you named a few off the hop already, but like that if you're feeling down, if you're feeling like I'm like, for example, that story about going on stage and trying to get through it. Like, are there any times that you'll listen to something to pump you up? Like, I know I'll listen to like an Eminem Lose It, or Lose Yourself, for like a Rocky. And this is just on an ordinary every given day. Like, Brian, you have like an exam in 20 minutes. I'm like, 20 minutes, great. I can listen to this song about 10 times. And they'll be like, do you hear Rocky in the next room? He knows that this is just like a multiple choice test, right? It's like, he's fine. He's studied, but somehow this gets him in a psyche. Do you have any like kind of songs or artists like that?
Definitely. Like I fully understand the Rocky theme song. That was me every single test in high school. Just walking into class, earphones at 100, da-da-da, be like, oh my God, I'm about to get 100 on this. And it's like, Tyler, this is a 5 question multiple
Yeah,
choice.
yeah,
What do you,
yeah.
and I'd get so hyped. But AC/DC up there, Back in Black, and
Okay.
classic, beautiful. Even Eminem, Lose Yourself.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But definitely
I
things of that realm.
I think it's just funny because like so the story I'll bring up is kind of just it's funny to me because once we were done like our say our high school exams, and my high school was maybe 10 minutes away from home, and you'd maybe ask for a friend that'd be like, I can give you a drive home, or like like and I was just like, yeah, I'd be home in 5 minutes, or take maybe 20 minutes walk. But I just felt so good about this exam, and it's like wintertime, it's cold out. And so I think it's like during the last Rocky movie, it's like 3 6 Mafia has a song, and I just walked home to that, like hit him with a left, hit him with a right, and like there's people like looking at you like, why is he a loser? Like he could be home in 5 minutes, or he has 20 minutes in the freezing cold. You're like, I'm having a rocky moment. It's like, oh, you're gonna have a fight with someone later? Like, no, I just fought that test. That's paper, Brian. That's paper. But it just gets you in your mindset. Like there are songs now that I kind of think of that I want to make parodies of, or like just joke. Like I like the song, but there's like times that I'll think of like, yeah, this is a good parody. Like, so the example I'll use is, I think it's like Sister Hazel is one of my favorite songs that they have is All For You. But when I listen to it, I'm like, this is a part of a movie where like the geeky kid or whatever kid is like waking up in bed and like going through flashbacks of a girl that he like looked over, and then all of a sudden he shows up at the doorstep with flowers, roses, and she's like, oh, finally he's at my door, this is what I wanted for like 5 or 6 years. I'm like, yeah, in movies. In real life that person's just like, I fucking moved on, man, I moved on. Why are
Let
you
it
at my door
go.
with flowers?
Haha, flowers over here.
Yeah,
Haha.
it's like, and then you're like, that's not how they taught me in the movies. It's like when you look at High School Musical and you think like, oh yeah, we're all in this together. It's like you go into school the next day and be like, hey, we're buddies. It's like, get lost, nerd. You're like, okay, didn't really go to plan, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. um
Exactly.
but yeah, I know I kind of went off the rails there with that, but I just thought it was interesting because like you get involved with music, and these music kind of inspire you, pump you up, that kind of thing. So I think it's interesting, like again, coming back to what you said earlier, how you can look up on YouTube, and that's kind of how you got interested in this music, picked up the sax. But um I guess, how did your parents kind of take it when you said I want to get into jazz? Were they kind of like, oh, great, now we got to go to every fucking jazz show ever? Or were they more or less like, awesome, do what you got to do, man?
Yeah, so my dad was very supportive. He was like, you know what? All right,
Yeah.
this is a crazy trip you're about to go down, but if you really devote your time to it, I'll support you. I'll back you up. But my mom was definitely like, she was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
You need a double major in computer science. Please take a business class. Lord
Yeah.
help us all.
Yeah.
Armageddon. And I was like, oh man.
It's like
But
the good cop bad cop. I feel like when they're like when they get whiff of it, like even if they're, because you know what parents are like, they like snoop around. So if they get whiff of something of like, oh, he got an interest in this, they're like every scenario like, okay, so if he ever comes to us and says he wants to do this, who's being the good cop, who's being the bad cop? It's like, I'll be the supportive one and you be the one that tells him otherwise, because we can't have too much support in this family, and we can't have too much negativity.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like if you go into Moro and you're like, I kind of want to go skydiving. They're like going through a playbook. Which one's the good cop in this one? It's like, I fully support you skydiving. Everyone's like, are you crazy? You're afraid of heights. uh,
Exactly. Exactly.
so tell me more a little bit about, because it sounds like, I know you're only 19, but it sounds like you should be like 30 or 35 here with all this stuff that you're mentioning about, like, having your first show, having your own kind of band now on your own. Like, I guess, when did you really take music seriously? And if you say at 3, I'm going to be like, you are bullshit. No.
At 3, actually.
Oh, 3. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Um, so I picked up saxophone in middle school. I was getting super into saxophone, and I was like, this is cool. And then I think it wasn't until I was about like 15 that when I started releasing songs on Bandcamp,
Okay.
um, and people started to catch whiff of that. People started to like buy them and be like, "Oh, this is nice." I started to be like, "Oh, I could like do this." And then at 16, I released my first album, and that's when I was like, "Oh, this is very serious. Yeah, let's get into it." And
So
ever since then, it's been a crazy ride.
So at 16, when you were saying you released your first album, like how did that kind of come to be? Was it like all through your own recording? Did you like go to the school and kind of like, because I know with some people when they're first starting off, like some schools have recording studios, or like a teacher that will say like, hey, yeah, man, like just come, like I'll help you. And
Uh,
in today's world, it's like you can go into someone's basement or house, and if they got the money or the equipment, you don't need like a lot to come out with your first, say, album. Like it might not be the best quality, but it's like it's way better than say what you put out in the like 80s because of the technology we all have.
Mhm.
So like tell me how that kind of first album came to be.
Um, Brian, it's straight out of a movie. I swear. We were just talking about this, but it was my drummer's garage actually that he converted into just like a practice room. So
Okay.
we'd all meet in his house just every other weekend. We set up our like tiny microphones, our tiny USB microphones we got off Amazon for like $15. We'd set up blankets around the walls to like soundproof everything, and we would just live record everything,
Oh
and
wow.
that would be it. We got 10 tracks, and we were like, "This is beautiful." We just submitted them. Then like a week later, we were on some Spotify playlists, and like some teenagers just around our area that we didn't know were listening to them, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is very real." And then I played Rocky.
Yeah. It's like when someone sees you at your local like Burger King or something and they're like, "Hey, that's Tyler." It's like put your earphones in and be like, "I'm too big for you. I'm too big. I will sign one autograph. I will take his picture." And then they're like, "Dude, no, I was just coming because you asked me to study here. I don't know what you're getting on with." You're like, "Sorry about that, man."
That was my alter ego coming. Sorry.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's Skylar. Yeah, yeah. Skylar Ransom. They're like I'm not sure if I'm meeting Tyler or Skylar today. He got his shades on, so I guess you're meeting Skylar. It's like I laugh at it because it's like the Joe Budden effect, or is it? Yeah, sorry, not Joe Budden, Joe Biden effect, where it was like you put on the glasses and it's like, oh dear,
you
here we go.
change.
Here's the badass coming. Then when he takes it off and like again, I'm not bad mouthing Joe, but then sometimes when he says words and they're not coming out right, I'm like, just put the glasses back on. Just act like you're cool. Don't say anything. And then like he'll be like, there was a time back in this day 1,000 years ago. I'm like, but you weren't even alive 1,000 years ago. What are you talking about? And it's like, then like someone just slowly comes over, puts the glass back on. Shh. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Um, no, I think it's interesting. Like you mentioned, it was like, what was it, 15, 16? You were doing that?
More or less in that
Yeah,
realm.
yeah. So I mean, when you were going to high school, like, what was I guess like because it seems like you're very devoted. So I mean, were there people? I'm not going to say trying to distract you in any way, because that'd be kind of mean. Hey, I'm over here, distraction. But like, how do you kind of manage that? Because I know, like, just say you're in high school and trying to get this done, or junior high, and you know that your buddies are on the side going like, "Come on, let's go play a sport. Let's play video games." Like, how do you kind of manage a little bit of both?
Yeah, they were definitely like, it's Friday night, come on,
Yeah.
let's go to the party. And I was like, I'm really trying to learn this John Mayer guitar lick. But that's sort of you. I'm sort of with that mentality that you get as much out of it as much as you put into it. So I didn't go to a lot of parties. I didn't really do a lot of clubs in high school because I was just always in my room, just practicing guitar, just trying to make it work, putting in that work.
So like I guess at school were you and again no offense by this, it's just
No, you're good.
I look at it, but it's like were you kind of like the loner kid where yeah you have a few friends but it's like don't even bother talking to him or asking him because he's busy just strumming that guitar, or like
Yeah, yeah.
in this case playing the sax.
Straight out of a movie. Straight out of a movie.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was that was me. I'd be in the back of the class listening to BB King, big blues guitarist, just like writing out lyrics. People would be like, "What's he doing?" It's
Yeah,
like, "Oh,
yeah,
just listening to Rocky. He's getting ready to take the
yeah,
five
yeah,
question multiple choice thing."
yeah. It's just and then like when you're doing the five questions, like he actually has he has a note that says he's allowed to play while doing the multiple choice. It calms him, it suits him. I'd be like, okay, I think we're getting a little bit out of hand with all this bringing in notes and letting things happen on the fly. Like that kid literally over there has the answers written on his hand, but because he brought in a note that says that's allowed, you allowed it. Come on, you got to make something up here. Uh, no, I think it's fair. It's just like in my mind, I'm very interested because I know in just like in high school, if you have this desire or interest and you tell your friends, hey, one day I'm going to do this, like one day I'm going to be on SNL, or one day I'm going to be going worldwide, Canada, United States, all over the world, learning or like singing songs. They're like, yeah, okay, great, and then you're just like, That went smoothly than what I thought it was going to be, because I thought they were going to be like, yeah, you're a dork. It's like, okay, well, they didn't really outright humiliate me. They're just like, cool. I don't know if that's worse because they didn't bother. It's almost like, why bother? But like, I guess, how did you kind of like, were there people like that in your life that, like, in high school, when you would tell them like, this is what I'm going to do, even if they're their buddy, like sometimes your buddies are kind of just trying to look out for you, but were they kind of like, I don't know, like, maybe your mom's right, maybe you should do a business degree, but how did you take it? Because sometimes not everyone likes the negativity. Some people are like, as soon as you say a negative remark, they're like, how dare you defy everything that I've learned? And then there's other people like, whoa, easy, I'm just saying realistically here.
How dare you defy
Yeah,
everything I've built for
yeah,
us?
exactly. Exactly. Do you not see this poster on my wall? Oh, look at this poster over here. How did that get here?
But there are definitely, people that are like, maybe this isn't for you. But that sort of just pushed me harder. I was like, okay, not everyone. It's something I've learned. Not everyone's going to be a fan of what you do, but those that truly believe in you will be there in the end. And you just have to keep on working hard.
Now, you're at the age group that I feel has kind of grown up with, say, the Instagrams, the TikToks. I sound like I'm like a 90-year-old. The Instagrams, the TikToks. But like, do you use those to kind of promote, I guess, your story, like your music? And I feel like this is the generation that's supposed to be more creative. I will argue anyone who kind of wants to bring that forward, but like, 'cause some of the stuff I see on these apps, I'm like, that's not creative. You literally just lip sync. We've been doing that for years. But like, how do you manage all this? Like, how do you kind of promote your stuff, and like, what kind of feedback do you get? Like, because again, to bring it back somewhat negative, if you get a bad remark on your social media, are you the type that just goes like, okay, whatever, and to each their own? Or you the kind of just sends an emoji of like a middle finger back, and then they're like, oh no, he replied and he's mad?
Yeah, I'm like, how dare you defy my entire empire,
Exactly.
everything I built.
I am now tempted to go on like one of your platforms here now and just leave a remark of like I don't get it, and then you just be like, it'd be like an alias, so you don't even know it's me, and you'd be like, how dare you? I'd be like, he's true to his word. I see those replies all the time from Tyler. That is his go-to automatic reply. It's going to be like one of your shirts. How dare you defy Tyler Ransom?
I'm gonna write that down. I like that. I like that. Just
Well,
like
yeah, but
Comic
like,
Sans too.
I don't want like copyrights, but I just want one sent to me so I can wear it around. And someone's like, who is this guy? I'd be like, how dare you defy Tyler Ransom? They'd be like, he didn't even answer my question. But then he'll go home and research it and be like, there you go. Now you got a fan. See?
Big
Yeah,
brain.
yeah. So I mean,
But
long-winded way of getting it, but like, in social media, when like, how do you kind of promote your stuff? And if you do get backlash, like, how do you kind of engage with that? Because I know still at a young age, sometimes it feels like I can just say whatever I want and no one's going to come at me. But then when you learn later on in life, it's like, oh shit.
it's crazy that it's basically the internet's have it's given everyone a voice, which is great. But like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I've been so I upload videos of me just playing guitar, just short snippets, of what I've learned the day or something like that, and I've been doing that since 2016. So if you go back, you'll see like high school freshman me like playing Miles Davis, and it's been like 4 years of doing that. I got my fair share of like other guitar players being like, "Oh, your guitar isn't in tune."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, that's the wrong note," or like, "Oh, you played this in the wrong key." And at first, it was actually like it really hurt my feelings. I was like, "Ah, man, maybe I will get that business degree,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't respond or anything. But then over time, I've learned to just be like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a step back. I'm just gonna be like, hey, thank you for the feedback. Have a good day.
I feel like that's the approach that you've mastered that maybe at your age. I feel like it's still 10 years down the road from me, and I'm still like, I don't know why. It bothers me to the point where someone's like, yeah, but if you walk away for like 2 or 3 hours, it should be okay. Like you'll forget about it. I'm like, no, it's literally stuck in your head. Like, and it could be nothing personal. Like, I've watched one on like TikTok where I hate TikTok for this stuff, but it's like, and sometimes Instagram kind of implements it in, but it's like a girl was with her father and her father's building stuff around the house, and the girl comes over and goes like, um, it's like my dad has built such this like large expectations of what men should be to me that if you can't build me something, it's not just going to work out. And I'm like, okay, but like how about you just learn to build that yourself, or that's why we have people that do that for us. Not everyone is like a hands-on person. And I wrote that, and then someone got back to me and was like, how dare you shame her, like whatever, like if she wants a man that can build stuff, let her have a man. I'm like, it's fine, just don't put it all over on the internet to make us feel bad if we can't build things. And it's like, well, maybe you should learn. And then it just spirals, and then it
Oh my
came down to the
goodness.
point of, you're Canadian, you don't have an opinion. And I was just like, it's like one of those like where the water just comes at your face and you're like drowning. You're like you're like, this has nothing to do with the comment. Why are you getting so personal with this? So, and then you're like, you feel like just sitting in your room and going like, okay, just let that pass, whatever. But then it like stews in your mind. It's like,
Just
who
built up.
can say we're the, and you're like, okay, I got to reply to this. So sometimes someone's like, just send them like an emoji of this. I'm like, okay. And somehow that triggers them more than you just going, oh, sorry, eh? They're like, they get
Sorry.
triggered more by the emoji. So we're in this mental state, I feel like, with everyone, where it's just like you send an emoji and that does more harm than anything. Like I feel like if you go on your video and someone says, hey, you're singing this out of tune, you're like, okay, thanks for the compliment. But if someone sends you a clown emoji, you're like, are they calling me a
Oh.
clown? What are they doing here? Now I don't understand.
And then you read too much into it, it becomes a whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, but I'm glad you've mastered the just getting by, because I feel like later on in life that will help you. Like right,
It,
I feel like if you went on like your Instagram or Facebook or something, and someone's like, I don't even know who this guy is, you're like, okay, good, get the F out of here. They're like, oh, that's it, I'm gonna get mad at him even more. And you're like, why? You don't want to be here to begin with.
it
um
definitely it gets worse before it gets better.
yeah, but I like the fact though, like you said, you continued on with it, because I'm just looking at how many stories are probably out there of people who did get these comments. And this is like the downfall, I guess, of social media, who did get these comments and they're like, no, I'm done, I give up, like it's over. And you're like, okay, that's good, I guess. But I'm I look at it in the terms of, just say if you didn't have a like Avril Lavigne, or in the case of like a, I don't know, just say even a Stevie Wonder, if they were like seeing these comments or someone reading the comments to them at their age, and it's like, well, we don't have Stevie Wonder because some kid was an asshole to him, and now we don't, like, he just gave up. So that's the downfall, I think, of social media. As much as it's supposed to be social, I feel like it's more or less like bully media, where it's like, hey, you're doing
Bully
something
media.
because you want to do it and you love it. No, that's not allowed.
Send
Don't,
clown emoji.
yeah, 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 don't do that. uh, but the other thing I kind of want to touch base on too is, so like 2020 being a year of COVID, where people weren't really allowed to, I guess, kind of go out and mingle, especially with concerts and stuff. How tough is that for someone like yourself, where you're not? I know social media can be helpful in terms of getting the exposure, but I guess when you're not actually able to go out and do concerts, go out and really, push your product or push your talent, it got to be kind of frustrating. So, like, what have you been doing during COVID to kind of keep this afloat, or keep this on top of the water?
Yeah, this is when bully media comes in.
Yeah.
It's I've been, as much as I am not really with social media either, I go to my sister a lot. I ask her what times I should post or like what type of caption I should have. But I've been working on my presence online a lot more, and I've also been using quarantine to write a lot more. I have an album coming out in February. You know, I picked up a lot of new skills on the computer producing, but just a lot of working in the shadows, sort of just preparing uh, for next year, hoping that the traction I've built throughout quarantine by becoming a big internet presence sort of just comes to fruition next year, something along the lines of that.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, like, I kind of want to get into this just as a tease, but like, I'm hoping your sister is either around your same age or always on like these social medias. I hope it's not like a 5-year-old you're going to and be like, "Hey, you're big on social media. Like, what do you do?" And then she's just still like, "I just like to color," and you're just still like, "Oh, you're very helpful."
Yeah, she's senior in high school. She knows the ins and out, but
Okay,
she's
so
also yeah.
so that's good. At least she's like somewhat involved with social. I would just love to see this is the kind of like game plan that I'm thinking that would help you a little bit of exposure too, in a different kind of context of if you were like, all right, people, I'm about to post my my new song here today, but I'm gonna just check in with my sister to see like what kind of things you guys like, and then just have a baby there and just to be like, hey, you have you have the camera on you the whole time, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna play you a few songs, and we're gonna see what my sister thinks. And it's like play a few songs and just pan it to the baby. The baby's like okay, like that's great, and you'll be like, thanks for the feedback, baby.
I like that. I'm gonna write that one down
Yeah,
too.
yeah, there you go. See, I'm giving you ideas that like, and if you use them and become famous, I want to shout out. I want to be like, I was on this guy's podcast. He gave me a whole bunch of ideas. It's like full credit to him. You get on like ET Canada or ET, and then it's like, breaking
Canada.
news. Yeah, it's like breaking news. Tyler Ransom and Brian are in a battle over like, money. I'd be like, I just really just want him to acknowledge I helped. That's all. He can keep the money. They're like, that's not what we want. That's not what the viewers want. They want tension. I'd be like, yeah, there's no tension. I just kind of want acknowledgement. They'd be like, I can't believe we spend 20 minutes a day on this just because we were talked up that you guys were going to go battle back and forth. No, I'm fine. Tyler, how are you? I'm doing good. Okay, well, can you just acknowledge that I helped you? Yeah, no problem. Then
No
like
problem. Here's the baby.
yeah, like accused of silence, and they're like, we really taped like 20 minutes of you guys arguing. Oh, well, that's your problem, not ours. Yeah, cue the baby in the background. Baby, what do you think of this? It's like, I think it's okay. Whoa, that was her first words. But yeah, no, actually, when you mentioned that, or like when I brought that up, I feel like it's like one of those segments of like Elmo, when Elmo talks to a baby.
Oh my
I feel like
goodness.
whoever plays the part of Elmo, like when they brought that up to them, like, hey, you're gonna be the puppet and we're gonna talk to a baby. They're like, okay, like for a segment for like 2 minutes. No, this is gonna be the thing on the show. They're like, oh, that sounds fun. Does the baby talk back? No, it'll probably just
No.
like try to punch you in the nose because you're Elmo. Great, sign me up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Although that was
Great
great
minds.
TV. Great TV.
That's true.
Yeah. Here you watch those moments back in time. It's like, here's a classic Elmo moment. Uh, oh no, it's fairness. But talking about, I guess, your new album, you said you're coming out in February.
Hmm.
Like, what can people kind of expect from that album? Like, what do you really want people to take away from that?
Deep questions. It's a lot about clarity. Clarity was a big thing that it was a big theme of my life going in quarantine, as I'm sure everyone else sort of reflected a lot. So I spent a lot of time in quarantine just writing, searching for clarity within myself, and I sort of wrote all those songs about that. So that's a big theme of it. I'm excited.
I feel like you just changed my podcast name to Deep Questions with Brian.
Questions with Brian.
Deep Questions with Brian. Like, I'm just gonna have like a sea background behind me, and they'll be like, and then someone will understand the deepness of that. It's like we are getting, so it's basically the water here. It's like, I get it.
Meta.
He's in Newfoundland. He's surrounded by water. It's called Deep Questions. Like, how did we not see this before?
Haha, deep questions.
Yeah, deep questions over here. But no, that's awesome. Now, I guess if quarantine kind of never happened, like it's hypothetical, but like what kind of things do you think you would be doing? Do you think you'd still have that album coming out in February? Or do you think you'd still be like battling with your friends of like, dude, it's Friday, I'm doing this. Stop barging at my door asking me to play video games.
Wow, deep questions again.
I know, deep questions, man.
I, I think I'd still have an album on the way, but the topic would probably be a bit different. The tunes that I'd be producing maybe a bit more in a different realm. But I think I'd still be as creative, but it would just be the type of creativity.
That's fair. Fairness. I like that. It's a very kind of musical, artistic answer you gave me there, and that's not a slight. It's just like I said. It's like when those deep questions give you deep answers. Uh, where I should have started this off at the beginning, but I mean we can get into it a little bit on the funner side of things here as well. Not that this podcast is not all fun, but uh, where did you grow up, and where like are you still in the house that you kind of grew up with?
So I grew up in Los Angeles. I was born in Chicago, but I moved to LA at a very young age. And growing up, I went to four different high schools, so I learned to adapt as a teenager as well. But I'm still here in the same house. I haven't moved. Very grateful for that. So just soaking up the energy here.
Interesting. Very nice. Very nicely done. And I feel like where you said, so you're in LA now.
Hmm. In LA
Okay, so
now.
like, well, that kind of has to be a little bit of a plus because I mean, when I think of music and places that you kind of want to be involved in music, it's like L.A., New York, Nashville if you're country related. But like, I mean, or Nashville in general, because right now it's like it seems like they want to get into like the pop side of things too. But um, I feel like in LA, like you have to have, I guess, some perks. Like, I mean, geez, so coming from just Canada in itself or Newfoundland, we hardly get kind of acts that come to Newfoundland. And if they do make a Toronto or a Canada date, it's like Toronto or Vancouver. It's like, well, thanks for really thinking of me. But
Oh.
I feel like in LA, it's like you'll get acts to come through, and like how many kind of concerts I guess have you seen in just say the past couple of years, and who those concerts would be?
Yeah, I've been to a number of concerts. Just,
Hate you. No,
pardon?
no.
Not, one of the first ones I went to was Gary Clark Jr. Actually, he's a big blues guitarist. At a, I saw him at a record store. I saw John Mayer a couple times.
Oh, now I
Just
really hate you. Go away, Tyler. No, no.
but yeah, I've just been very honored to see big names like that pull through for LA. It's nice. Very
You just,
fortunate.
yeah, like I feel like because I know when I like so go down that YouTube hole again, like I mean I've seen I think it was in LA that John Mayer does it now. Maybe he does it everywhere, but it's just the LA crowd that made it really wholesome. Is when he does acoustic stuff. I think there was one. It could have been Free Fallin' in LA that he's done, and like I just eat that up, and I'm like yeah I like Tom Petty's version, but at the same time, like, geez, I'm really struggling to argue against John Mayer's version as well.
It's a
So,
beautiful rendition.
yeah, but so I feel like when you're at these concerts, like, yeah, you're getting some experience, but like, as a musician, do you kind of come away with like insights? Like, I'm not saying you're like backstage with John Mayer, going like, John, like, tell me all this stuff, but like, when you see that, and if you see like how he reacts to a crowd, or how they kind of I guess keep it entertaining to a whole mass while still playing music. Do you sometimes you bring that home with you? Like, because I feel like if you're just playing an instrument, someone's going to be like, okay, whatever. But if you bring
Ah,
some jazz to it, they're like, pun intended.
ah,
If you bring
ah.
some jazz to it, they'll probably be like, oh man, like this guy's singing, he's dancing, he's moving, he's doing some crazy things here. Like, is that the kind of stuff that you like take out of those concerts?
Yeah, so sometimes, I pick up on their mannerisms. I see what they say in between songs. And I like try and incorporate that energy, that vibe into my performances. One of the first shows I did in college, I watched like Mac DeMarco at Austin City Limits for like an hour straight before I went on stage. And I was like, "You like jazz?" And then I played some jazz tunes. It was
Oh,
great.
nice. So that's I think that's interesting. Like now in I know being only 19, has there been like any kind of musical acts or um I guess artists that you've kind of interacted with? Like I know you're not going to come out with like just say the biggest of names. Like I don't expect you to be like, oh yeah, me and Macklemore went to lunch one day, or mean, but have there been acts that you've kind of looked up to, even if they're local acts that kind of have taken you aside or you've done shows with, and it kind of gives you a little bit of new sense of light of things?
Yeah, being in LA, I'm very fortunate just to like be around like so much creative energy. Nothing that big. I went to a Brockhampton concert. I was able to meet the guys backstage. They gave me some feedback. They were like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And, we handshook each other, and they were like, "Yeah, so just keep working hard." And I was like, "Wow, thank you. I will treasure this moment forever." And I saw Thundercat after like he was like eating at Chick-fil-A next to my high school.
Oh,
And I
wow.
said hi to him. That was pretty cool. But nothing that crazy yet.
But
Nothing that
it,
crazy
it
ever.
still just gives you, like, I guess, and this is the perk of being where you're too, like, it kind of gives you, like, you can run into these people, or you can sometimes just even have a general conversation. Like, I grew up watching like late night television, like comedy is my thing. So if I seen Conan out on the streets here in Newfoundland, I'd be like doing a double take. Like, I'm pretty sure that's Conan. Like, I'll go over and say hello. Like, I might not just be like, here, I'm gonna test out some jokes for you. But it's still like like, oh, cool. Like, he came here. Sure, let me go say hi to give you some kind of a boost for the day. It's funny because I kind of wanted to bring this up, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I remember when I was in like yeah, university, I was, you're just so starstruck with some of these people. So you're like, oh, this is a new social media that I can actually reach out to people on. So I think I like was getting ready to go to a soccer game, and I was so pumped up. This time I was listening to Macklemore, and I had tweeted out
Hmm.
a few lyrics at Macklemore that were from his own song, which of course is like, yeah, I know, I wrote this. What are you doing? And I was just like getting ready to go to soccer. It's like pump up jam, Macklemore tweeted a few lyrics. I was like, let's go. And then someone liked it, and it was like Macklemore, and I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, oh, cool, like Macklemore liked it. So for a week I was telling people Macklemore liked my tweet, and then I go home, and of course the minorest of things, they changed it from LE to EL, but all the same shit. And I was like, oh, that was a fake
Hey.
high. I was so high on that I was like so over
Oh.
the moon. And then you go home, you're like, wait, why do you not have a check mark by yours? Why didn't I check this 5 seconds after you shared this? Um,
Bamboozled.
yeah, bamboozled. Have you ever been in one of those situations where it's like you feel like, yes, this person has retweeted me or shared this or reached out to me, and then you're like, no.
Thank goodness. Very grateful. I have not. I have not. John Mayer liked one of my guitar posts one time. At
Oh,
first, I
really?
thought it was a prank. I was like, this isn't nice. So I put my phone down. And then I was like, it's fake. It's clearly going to be fake. It's probably a fan page. And like I check in an hour and it's blowing up. And everyone's like, oh my God, Tyler, John Mayer. And I was like, oh, this is very real. This is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. And then that's when you reached out to John Mayer and be like, next show, man, I'm gonna open up for you. And he's like, see what happens when you give him just a little sense of encouragement.
Exactly. But so thank goodness. I have not been bamboozled yet.
Oh well, now that's gonna be my life goal. I'm gonna just be one of those people that it's just gonna be like, hey, there's this Tyler Ransom kid. Can you make a fake account and just, and they'll be like, why are you going through all this pressure on this fella? I'd be like, because, just because. Um, the last thing I kind of want to close out the interview with Tyler, if you're okay with all this, it's so being we're kind of a Canadian podcast, but of course we're going to share it across all our media as well. But um, have you ever encountered a very kind of Canadian-esque story or a Canadian individual and thought to yourself, wow, that's so Canadian? Like
Oh my God.
the example I give to people is like, I don't know if you've ever watched like How I Met Your Mother or like shows like that where they kind of tease the Canadian, but it's like Robin bumps into someone at like the local pub, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. Oh, here, have a donut." And then I think Barney's like, "Hold on, you banged into him, and he apologized and gave you a donut. What is this? Have you ever had a Canadian encounter?"
I have not had a Canadian encounter. You're the very first.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then I am so sorry I've asked you that question. I will send you some Tim Hortons to make up for that bad question. um, well, Tyler, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed the interview. How did you find it?
Of course, this was incredible, Brian. We really, this is me dabbing you up.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Tyler Ransom for coming on the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.